Hello everybody. Thank you for first Kindred for the support over the years. As you said, Chuck, it's been a long partnership and still a lot to come. I know that you guys have been great ambassadors, and I think the timing is just perfect, as you mentioned, because Southwest France has been awarded by the wine enthusiasts recently as the wine region of the year, which is great because it will put some highlights on that wonderful region. And I'm so happy today. It's perfect timing to get that opportunity to connect with all of you and share those news and present perhaps more deeply who we are and what we do. So I'm Vincent Thebaud. I've been working with Alain Brumont for almost more than 4 years now. Not always a walk in the park. The man is very intense, but believe me, absolutely incredible experience, and so happy to spend that time with him and with the team. Well, let's talk first about the region and Southwest France. If you look at that global map, on the left you see the whole France. On the left side you get Bordeaux. Everybody knows Bordeaux, and if you look below 2 hours, car distance roughly, you get Southwest France. Perhaps first some key information about that region. Alain Ducasse said that Southwest France is the birthplace of the the high gastronomy products, and you get a lot of famous products that comes from that region. And by the way, a lot of great chefs in France come from that region because of that richness. Not only the foie gras that everybody knows, or the duck, but also caviar, a lot of different products. You just do 20 kilometers and you get such a diversity. So impossible to think about Southwest France without talking about food and gastronomy, and that's key also for wines. On the right side, you see that it's a big region. You get roughly 43 appellations, more than 4,000 wine growers. So that's pretty big, pretty diverse. You get a lot of different colors there. So it's important in such an environment and a diversity to get some leaders, to get really wineries or operators who will really set the path, put that region on the map. And I think that it's difficult to imagine somebody who could encapsulate all that more than Alain Brumont does. Alain Brumont really get that wonderful experience, and is really leading in quality that region. Others do also, but I think it's important to really use Brumont as a locomotive for such a region. And another point, I think, is the climate, which is very specific, because in that region, and we'll talk about Tannat today with Maron, we'll talk about Petit Mansin, but also in those regions that you see in France, other grapes that are very local, born and raised there. Why? Because when you look at that map, you see that you have different influences. You're not that close from the ocean as Bordeaux does, but you still get some ocean influence. You get a bit of continental influence because you're deeper in the lands. But look at the bottom, and you see the Pyrenees being those mountains between France and Spain. And those are so important because they protect us. And we get now, I can tell you, still in December and close to Christmas, we get wonderful weather. That's the best example. So late season, between September, October, up to January sometime, that gives us a soft, warm wind that will enable the grapes born and raised there to ripen. And one of the common points of those grapes is a high acidity. And high acidity is absolutely key, for wines, only if you reach the right ripeness. And thanks to that specific location, we can benefit from that. You also see Irouléguy getting very close to Spain, which is also another region using the grape Tannat. Now, if we zoom in a little bit, we'll see that we go in that green area that will be really the focus of the attention today, with two appellations that you see on the right side. So Madiran for the reds and Pacheringue du Vic beer, terrible French name. I'm sorry for that. It's an old French. Definitely not the most marketing oriented, but let's keep it simple. That's the white wines of Madiran. And you get that gray area, much wider, which is called the Gascogne. Gascony, strong character of lots of energy. If you think about the Three Musketeers, I'm sure you heard about. I think that if it would be at that time, if you would have lived at that time, probably Alain Brumont would be D'Artagnan, with that, you know, energy and intensity. And I think that the wines from that region represent that energy, all those flavors that are very interesting. So here if you think about Madiran and Pacheringue, so we get roughly 1,300 hectares for Madiran and 300 hectares for Pacheringue. So it's very small if you think about it. And Alain Brumont, through Brumont Vineyards, own today 300 hectares. And we're not talking about whatever hectares. We're talking really about the best terroirs that you get. He's really a terroir-oriented person. So I would say that not only Alain Brumont is representative of that region, and also a big, you know, a producer of Gascony, but he's also probably the one with the biggest potential of development, which is also important. So set the bar at a high level, but also potential for growth. Okay, so Roger Voss, who is one of the famous wine enthusiast journalists, just recently, and it's reported on that slide, you know, the award, reported the awards that the wine enthusiasts decided to elect Southwest France as Wine Region of the Year. And I think it's well deserved because of the diversity that we mentioned earlier, but also all the development that has occurred over the last decades. Definitely that region is on the map, has been spread all across the world, I would say. And Brumont, clearly, but also some others are present in more than 40 different markets. So it's very interesting, and always with that genuine component, authenticity, and good value for money, which is also very characteristic. So the awards is something that was announced recently. The special event will happen at the end of January on the 29th, and you will see newspaper in the coming weeks and months, some regular information about the region, about the people, about the leading wineries, about the wines. So it's a very interesting, you know, series of information that will be displayed down the road in 2018. So let's capture the opportunity. I mean, that's a perfect timing to invest, to continue to increase the distribution, and get people excited about that region. Now, talking a bit about Gascony, I'll let you discover that slide. Basically, it's saying that it's not something that was created yesterday. The Romans, back at that time, and they were very involved in viticulture, were very smart at understanding the potential of that region that was close and around Bordeaux. And there you get also a connection of different rivers. They are mentioned there, Dordogne, Garonne, and the Tarn were used at that time as the main highways to get access to the wine. So a big development, even if through time, it seems that the Bordeaux region was thinking first to themselves. Well, you know, that was what happened in time. Things changed too, and they put there the Bordeaux wine first, and Gascony was a little bit on the side, and was considered after as a local production, so less exposed. So that's important to understand that it's a long history but Gascony and also Madiran have been through tough time. They were less exposed due to those historical reasons, and also the phylloxera that happened to in France earlier on the last century. But even more important in such a context, to get leaders who can change the rules, who can really move the status quo. And I think that's really what happened with a man like Alain Brumont, who understood the potential of the wines and said, well, you know what, let's highlight what we have. We can do something amazing with our wines. And Madiran, if you look at that appellation now, this is an AOP from Southwest France, and Tannat clearly is the king there. And but Tannat could have disappeared, to be honest, without the passion of Alain and other people. It was used by Bordeaux in time as a médecin wine, what they call a doctor wine, because of the richness of the color, because of the tannins that you had, and also the balance that was brought by the acidity that you get naturally. But I would say that at that time, a few people started to really make some wines and try to do a better job. And when Alain arrived, he took some strong positions, strong statement, doing some 100% Tannat. And as you can see on that slide, today, if you come in that region, the best, Madiran or 100% Tannat. But nobody did that before Alain. So it's really something that was completely rejuvenated and highlighted by Alain in the early 80s. Then we have the Pacherin de Vic-Bilh, as mentioned, so white wines that could be either dry whites or sweet whites on late harvest. So that's also another point I think that is important to discover together, is that through that region, Southwest, and through the wines of Alain Brumont, you can really go from the beginning of a meal up to the end, from the dry to the sweet, from the white to the red. So let's talk about the winery now, and for a few moments I will stop talking and we'll have a look at a few pictures. I think it's also very important for you to see example of who we are. We'll get the chance after to deepen into the diversity of Brumont Winery. Two main estates, Château Bouscassé and Château Montus. One man behind it, Alain Brumont, a passion for the terroir, a passion for a grape, a real vision, and that's what we want to show through the movie that was prepared by Emily. So let's go. So that last picture is very important. You've seen that we have people around the table, and that's exactly in Château Bouscassé, where we have a restaurant. It's not an official restaurant, it's private. But if you guys, or if anybody from your market is coming at the winery, you would be impressed by the facilities that we have, both in terms of enoutourism, but also simply the day-to-day. People share wine and food. We are all at the same table, people from the winery, people from the office, and that's a culture, and that's really what Alain wants to impulse. He wants us to feel, like the vine of Tannat, and taking example of the oak tree. which is nurturing himself from what is around. That's what we try to do, to be self-sufficient. So if let's summarize who we are. So the appellation of Madiran, Pacherin du Vic-Bilh, Côte de Gascogne. So it enables us to be present at different moments of consumption, different price points, different customers. Total area between Bouscassé and Montus, we're talking about 250 hectares. You see on the picture, we have two different realities, 10 kilometers only. But believe me, that's really different. Bouscassé, limestone and clay, soft hills, that's really the food-oriented winery, a very interesting range of wine, so representative of Southwest. And Chateau Montus, if you remember, there was a picture with some big pebbles, steep slopes, very different profile with a lot of freshness, a lot of elegance. If we talk about the total production, we're talking about 3 million bottles, 13 million euros, close to 50 people. And export is just a priority to us, 60%. We are present in more than 40 countries. And what I can tell you is that the US became, last year, the market number 2, after Canada, who has been historically very strong, and especially Quebec market. So the US has been exploding over the last years, and Kindred has been an important contributor to that, that's for sure. And I think it's just the beginning, because what we try to do and what is important is really to connect people with the wines, with that wonderful story that we get in Southwest. So, I mean, with Alain Brumont, there is always one keyword, which is terroir. That man, if he could, would bring, you know, those pebbles, those rocks into your glass, because he's absolutely passionate about that, and passionate about the grapes that are local. And if you have to remember perhaps one thing about Alain, he wants to face the world. He wants to face the best wine in the world, but with local grapes. That's really a terroir enhancer, and that's exactly what he has tried and succeeded to achieve over the years. But even if, you know, he succeeded, some journalists say that to do in 35 years what others have done in centuries, for Alain, it's just halfway. There is a lot to come, and believe me, there is a lot of innovation still at the winery for the future, but always being true to the terroir. So it's possible to distinguish, I would say, the Brumont vineyards from Alain Brumont. That's really a man who is running after a destiny, who gets a vision, and we look at it together, and you will see that the rhythm is pretty intense. It's really started in the late 70s. His father already was a wine producer. If you think about it, at that time, he had 17 hectares, so 17, and he was one of the biggest producer at that time. But he was also producing other crops, other kind of production, and Alain was the first who really wanted to create something amazing. Long story short, a small conflict with the father, and the story brought Alain to buy Chateau Montus for almost nothing at that time. It was an old building, everything had to be planted again. And right from the beginning, he understood the potential of that terroir with the steep slope and big pebbles. He planted some Tannat and Cabernet Sauvignon, which is the blend that we have with Chateau Montus, 2 big grapes facing each other. Everybody thought that he was crazy, and even more crazy to make some 100% Tannat, 100% new oak. And that's with the first vintage of Chateau Montus Prestige, so an example of 100% Tannat, with the vintage 85 that he put definitely Madiran on the map. And after the first decades, he was one of the best wine growers of the 80s. As you can see, in '93, he won a competition, worldwide competition that was at that time in Quebec. And people said, who's that guy? I mean, what is Tannat? What is Madiran? we've seen earlier that it was a little bit lost in time, even if we already had a long history, but nobody really surprised the world by being blind tested and winning competition. And that's exactly where Alain changed the picture. Then he has been very consistent through time in 1995, in 2000, creating new projects, bringing also new wines. And Taurus, we'll discover it later, which is a more accessible Madiran, which became, by the way, #1 Madiran sold in Southwest France, was a project for Alain to have people discovering that wonderful region, discovering the wine, making it accessible. So Alain was famous first through the high-end premium wines, Château Bouscassé, Château Montus, Prestige, Vieille Vigne, old vines. And then after he widened, the portfolio through Taurus and through Gascony. Then in 2003, Château Montus, for a moment, became a 4-star hotel, and then went back private. We do some events, we do some weddings there. We have 10 rooms, so we can host people, and believe me, people who come to visit us or spend time with us become brand ambassador for life. And they will just take advantage of the wonderful environment, but also experience the food and wine and the authenticity approach that we have, and they will share it naturally with people from the winery. Then Alain participated to all great events, wine experience in New York, and also was asked, by journalists to make a big tasting in 2011, where he did the first big anniversary, big celebration of the 31st vintages of Château Bouscassé. And the journalists were amazed by both, the consistency of the style, which is, I think, balance between the fruit, the acidity, the structure, but also the potential of aging of Tannat. And that's what we try to do. We try to express the terroir, and it takes time. And we keep a lot of inventory that we release down the road. And if you see in 2014, I would say the third big investment that Alain did is called the Tannat Safe, a 6,000 square meter building that was built just to keep wine, for decades. From an economical point of view, does not make any sense. But if you think in terms of quality, in terms of terroir, and in terms of message and vision of Alain, it's just natural. It's just to keep some wines and to release some down the road, not everything. So we don't get only one vintage with our greatest wine, we get several. And that's something that we will offer to our markets. So in 2018, that man is 70 years old, he looks like 20, he's get Tannat in his blood, and I think, by the way, that's I don't know if you heard about the French paradox. That's another famous element of Southwest, where basically we eat some serious food, but we also drink Tannat, and it seems that it's keeping us young, or at least we live longer. So not only if you, I would say, we'll do some great business with Madiran, but it may be good for your health too. Okay, so now let's talk about the method. You don't put Alain Brumont in a box. You won't get the stamp bio, or you won't get the stamp, I would say, low sugar. But believe me, what we do in the vineyards is just incredible. The investment, the energy. And we try to really keep as preciously as possible the biodiversity that we get in the vineyards. Most of the terroir are located at the top of the hills. We keep the wood around. We use the water coming from natural spring. We harvest at night. We keep the cages on the floor, not to use electricity, to lower our energy consumption. So it's deeply integrated in our practices to be more organic than anything you can imagine. We try to plant also the vineyards what we call at 3 p.m. so that, you know, when the sun is at the sunset, it does not burn, you know, the bunches. So we can take out more leaves, and we get less humidity, less disease, and as a consequence, we use as low quantity of chemicals as possible. And what you see also on the right is the way we think. We don't think in hectoliters per hectares. We think in number of clusters per vine. Tanat, if we think about that grape, which is the really the one that we're championing, is a very genuine producing vine. You can get between 12 to 15 clusters per vine. But we do a lot of green harvest. So when you think about Bouscassé, for example, we get 7 clusters, Taurus 8 to 9. So which means that you're basically cutting half of it. And when you go up to La Tire or Prestige, we're talking about 5 to 6. So imagine the time that you have to really shape that terroir and really to bring the best ripeness and get the best expression naturally. Sounds mainstream to say that, but it takes a lot of time and energy. But that's the cost of quality. Now, let's talk about the wines. Now that we introduced, I would say, the 2 terroirs, so Château Bouscassé, Château Montus, and the philosophy that we have. So what we'll try to do in the coming slides is really to give you some key elements. I think that you guys have a lot of wines in your book. We all have 24 hours a day, so let's try to focus really on the key messages. We'll do it range by range, Gascony, Taurus, then Château Bouscassé and Château Montus, and we'll wrap up at the end with who we are. Okay, so here you get the Gascony range in front of you. The white with Brumont Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc, everybody knows. Brumont is really a grape that is local, a cousin of the Petit Mansin. Then we get a rosé, only one, that is done with a blend of Tanat, Syrah, and Merlot. So you see that pink color. This is really a rosé from the Southwest with character, a very interesting rosé, I think. And then you get the Merlot Tanat, the Tanat with the natural fruits that we get, the nice balance, the nice acidity rounded by the Merlot. So when you think about the Gascony region, you get really that generosity. Those are wines that are easy, approachable, fruity. Those are wine of friends, wine of barbecue, the one that you can put at the aperitif. If you get friends, you don't know what they like, you can easily open a bottle of white or red. You won't make any mistake. That's really very, very friendly, very well balanced. And we put the bar very high to produce those Gascony wines because most of the time that's the first contact, you know, with our wines. So I would say all customers, young wine amateurs, really feel comfortable to propose it for glass pour in restaurants. That's and that rosé, for example, is definitely a rosé that could be drunk all year long. Believe me, there is a very good food pairing component. Price point, $13 retail, still in that, you know, glass pour range, and I think very good value for money. People will never be disappointed. There is almost always that wow effect with the Gascony range. And last news, it's not on that picture on that slide, but we have a new baby coming in that range with the Tanat Cabernet Sauvignon. As we speak, we have just sent some samples that the Kindred team will taste in the coming days. It was a request from the Japanese market to get really those 2 grapes together. And we thought that it's time now, perhaps, to open it to new horizons. So you might get the opportunity to taste it. I think it's very complementary of the range, and I hope that you will enjoy the vintage that we have on the Gascony, or most of the time the last vintages. So we are now producing and finishing the vintage 2017. But for the Tanat Cabernet Sauvignon, it will be vintage 2016. Okay, so next range is Taurus. So now we are moving, remember the map that we had at the beginning, we're moving to Madiran. We were in Gascony, that gray bigger area. Now we are zooming in Madiran. And what do we have there? We have young vines of Chateau Bouscassé and Chateau Montus. Taurus is not a secondary wine. That's a very important wine. But they are too young today to be part, of those estates, Chateau Bouscassé, Chateau Montus. They will be in the future. So the blend is very classic here, 60% Tannat, 20% Cabernet Sauvignon, 20% Cabernet Franc. No oak. What you get is coming from the grapes, okay? And that wine, I think, is very interesting because it's inviting. You get the generosity of the Southwest. You get really more complexity compared to Gascony, but still very accessible. On the label, you see that we try not to be too French. It's not too serious. You see it's a Madiran. We clearly sign with Brumont. But you get Taurus, which is the fusion in French of two names, Taureau and Bacchus. Taureau is the bull, one of the symbols of the Southwest, and Bacchus, everybody knows. So Taureau, Bacchus, Taurus. That's the fusion. That's the only Bacchus that you get on the label. And I would say that the best example of Taurus, what I can tell you, is with restaurants. When you get some consumers, when you get to table with different profile of consumer at the same table, what do you bring? And I think that Taurus is really answering that. At the same time that you don't feel shy when you get that wine, you can identify some flavors pretty easily, even if you're not a big wine connoisseur. For those who are wine lovers, they have a very serious wine in their glass. So the perfect by the glass, the perfect way to dig in the universe of Madiran. And if there is good connection, and that's really the feeling and the feedback that we have, you can move then and trade up to the estate wine that we'll discover right now. Price points, $17 roughly retail. So still something very very interesting for glass pour. Wine bars will love it. That's really a food enhancer, living space for a tapas kind of spirit. So definitely a wine that I recommend. Okay, so now we'll get an approach of, you will see wider range. Okay, now we are in Chateau Bouscassé. Chateau Bouscassé, that's the first pictures that you've seen at the beginning. I'm sure that you wanted to jump into the computer because it's a very nice place. That's the home also of Alain Brumont. It couldn't be more, in the center of Madiran. Here we get limestone and clay, and the clay keep the humidity, give it back to the wine. So the style will be a generous style, what you might expect from that rich gastronomy area. Really something that will take space into your mouth, really get a presence. Having said that, keep in mind that the style, the signature of Alain Brumont wines is always balanced. So even if you get that character of the terroir, you will really get something that will enhance the food and leave space to it. So now let's discover that range together. We try to be as practical as possible on that slide and give you some tips on the profile of the wines and also what could be the target. Jardin de Bouscassé, Les Jardins, the garden. That's the first dry white that was produced in the region. Alain planted some vine, not to do some late, white wines as traditionally we had in that region, but really to make, a dry white, because he understood that there was potential with Petit Courbu and Petit Mansin, and Petit Mansin is pretty traditional. The Petit Courbu is really that grape that we are championing, probably the biggest producer. We are the biggest producer of that grape. Interesting balance, because you will, at the same time, you will get some generosity, some kind of licorice of flavor, You will get also the exotic notes and the nice acidity that is brought by the Petit Mansin. No oak for Les Jardins, a nice minerality at the same time. So you get some tension, even if you're not in Chablis, and you get the generosity. So a wine that is perfect for an aperitif. You can go naturally with oysters or with seafood, and serious enough to be to support some more complex food too. So By the Glass, I think, has been very successful also in Michigan. This is really a very versatile wine that you could propose very widely. Then we come to Chateau Bouscassé. Chateau Bouscassé Red, that's the flagship of Bouscassé. Same blends as Taurus, 60% Tannat, 20 Cabernet Sauvignon, 20 Cabernet Franc. You get all the vines. You get some oak aging, not 100%. It's a 50% new oak. The balance will be oak of 1 or 2 years. That's, if you lack food, if you like to get a good glass of wine, really something that will bring some more complexity and balance, that's the kind of wine that you will enjoy. So that's why we said Epicurean, traditional consumers, people who like to eat, to spend time on a good food pairing, traditional restaurants, or who like grills, for example. That's definitely the kind of one that will be enjoyed. Amazing recognition. Amazing story in the US recently. We were part of the top 100 wine spectator, top 100 wine enthusiast, ratings that were above 90, 92, 94 consistently on the last vintages, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. Now we are moving to 13 and 14. Really an amazing success story, I think, and so representative of Bouscassé. Then after you have Argile Rouge and Menhir. And let's really try to understand what's the difference in terms of terroir, because that's what I mentioned since the beginning, terroir. With Bouscassé, you get white clay. With Argile Rouge, you get red clay. And with Menhir, you get gray clay. And thanks to that diversity of terroir, we get a diversity in the profile of the wine. And that's why Alain produced different cuvées. So we have some special sélection parcellaire, as they are called, with Argile Rouge and Menhir. Similar blend with Argile Rouge, a little bit of Fer Cervadou on top of the Tannat, Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. And in the case of Menhir, very specific with Tannat and Merlot. Merlot not being allowed, in the appellation of Madiran, but who cares when your name is Alain Brumont and you see that there is potential to get the best expression of the terroir through Merlot. That's what we do. So the appellation will be Côte de Gascogne, but you cannot be more in the middle of the Madiran appellation. Argile Rouge, you know what? If you get customers saying, well, Madiran, it's always very dry, it can be aggressive. Believe me, red clay, Argile Rouge, it's just the opposite. That's just finesse, elegance, freshness. Probably the most feminine Madiran you could find in the market. Really with that profile of, orange kind of flavors, blood orange kind of flavor. So really very elegant, a wine that can be a nice discovery, I would say, for people who want to change their mind or rediscover Madiran. And Menhir, I would say, for Bordeaux lovers, people who like Saint-Emilion profile, we are very different from Bordeaux, but here you get that only terroir that could be pretty similar in the soil as the one of Saint-Emilion. So you get a lot of finesse, a lot of delicacy to that Menhir. It's a more geeky wine, probably something that people will look for, something different, and something that could be really a great bridge with traditional consumers from other regions. Then we arrive to Vieille Vigne. You know that Alain did 100% Tannat, 100% new oak right from the beginning. Vieille Vigne is definitely the Madiran, the reference of Madiran. More complex, we said haute couture. Really, anybody who is a Madiran lovers will try the new vintage each year of Vieille Vigne, that's for sure. So if you're looking for something a little bit more sophisticated, more complex, you will still get, all the fruit flavors from the Tannat, but also some spices. You will get some mocha flavors, still with that nice acidity that will support it. That's definitely the signature of Vieille Vigne. In terms of price point, we were between 28 retail below 30 with Bouscassé and the Sélection Parcellaire. Now we are moving to another step with $50, but definitely that's a big jump in terms of complexity and quality. So always over-delivering for the price. We have a lot of collectioners of Yérin. And last but not least, Brumaire, late harvest. So Brumaire in French, Old French, means November, because that Petit Mansin, 100%, is harvested in November. That's why we put that name on it. With the Petit Mansin, which is not botrytis, it's passerillage, so we'll really keep the punches on the vine, drying. You will get a lot of pineapple, mango, lychee naturally if you harvest it a little bit earlier. With Brumaire in November, you get also all that breakfast kind of universe with a bit of honey, toasty notes. But always, I'm repeating myself, but acidity, that's nice acidity that will really lift the flavors and leave a very clean mouth. That's what distinguishes, that sweet wine from any other sweet wine that you would find in the market. And even if it's not the biggest share of the market, it's always important for a sommelier to get a good sweet wine. That's a very good ambassador of that. It could be with the foie gras that is so famous from Southwest, but also a simple apricot pie. Personally, perhaps a small tip, I do it as an aperitif. I put it on a toast with blue cheese, could be Roquefort or even Gorgonzola from our Italian friends. You will really get the yin and the yang, something very interesting. So from a target of clients, tapas wine bar, sommeliers, traditional restaurant, it's always important. 50 centiliter, and in terms of conservation, if you open the bottle, leave it in the fridge open, even for 2 or 3 weeks, no problem. A slight oxidation on that will be very easily supported and even better. So no problem, to propose it. You don't have to absolutely consume that wine on the spot the same day. So it's important to know. So now we are finished with Bouscassé range. You see that you have 2 whites, 1 dry, 1 sweet, and really a nice diversity in terms of terroir, and as well as 100% tannin. So let's do 10 kilometers now. Let's move to Château Montus. You remember the second estate with steep slopes, big stones, as we've seen on the picture, very different profile. And here we get, with Montus Red, that's the second one, a blend of Tannat, 80%, and Cabernet Sauvignon, 20%. So characteristic and so historic, I would say, of that estate. Probably the most famous wine of Alain Brumont. Very seductive, very elegant. It's like a very white palette on the nose that you get. A lot of freshness, a lot of elegance in mouth. The tannins are very well integrated, and really something that is above Madiran, I would say. Showing very well also on the table. You will see Montus in a lot of Michelin star restaurants all over the world. That's really one of the reference. But you also get a white, and that's the first that you see there. Same blend as the white from Château Bouscassé with Petit Courbu and Petit Mansin. But there, we're in Montus. We get all that potential, that energy that is coming from that sun, which is eating all day long those big pebbles. So if you would be a vine there, you never rest. It's night and day. And really you get a complexity. So you need oak really not to bring oak to the taste of wine. That's not what we want, but really to help that wine going through time. Because the vision of Alain with that white, especially Château Montus white, was to be at the Pinnacle minimum after 10 years and to be able to face an Hermitage of Chave or a Pouligny-Montrachet, for example. So we get a very specific oak barrel aging on this one with barrels coming from Austria, from Stockinger, very boutique, 600 liters barrels, what are called demi-muit. And you get a wine with some depth, some texture, some oiliness, as well as nice licorice and exotic flavors. And even if you feel the structure, it's very well integrated, a bit of spiciness along with that minerality, a great wine of gastronomy. If you want to seduce a sommelier, if you want to go in a restaurant and really get something very different that will open doors, that's the wine. Chateau Montus White, believe me, incredible potential. Price point, 35. That's another step compared to the previous one, but sincerely, a piece of art with Montus White. Montus Red, we mentioned it. It's like the brothers. There is an interesting approach. When you're in with the white, you can be in with the red. That's definitely like a couple approach. And then we move to the 100% Tannat. So from now on, it's all 100%. What's the difference? Montus Prestige, you are at the top of the slopes of Montus. It's really where you get the highest concentration and ripeness. This guy is not here to negotiate with you. That's a full speed wine, really full of energy. You need to make it brief. It's a prestigious cuvée all the time. So never hesitate to decant it. And I mean, for really people who are big fan or big reds, I would say, and I know that in the US, you have a lot of people who say, I like big reds, I like Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, we have a private joke at Chateau Montus. We used to say that we soften Tannat with Cabernet Sauvignon, not the opposite. So here you get 100% Tannat. Believe me, if you get big red lovers, they will love Chateau Montus Prestige, that's for sure. Montus XL, the next one. XL we talked about the Romans before, means for 40 months of aging. That's basically the same base as Chateau Montus Prestige, I would say, 100% Tannat, almost the same location, but we age it more than 3 years. Why? Because it's a tribute of Alain Brumont to the old way, the ancestral methods of aging the great vintages Madiran. Back in time, when you had a great vintage, you were buying a big vat and you were putting your wine inside and getting some extraction, and you needed 15 years sometimes before being able to really release for the first time that wine. So Alain Brumont, keeping his DNA, keeping his style, wanted to pay a tribute to that old way of doing Madiran. And the current vintages that we get with XL are 96, 98, 2000. What I can tell you is that it's the best way for all vintage lovers to experience how Tannat could age and get an amazing potential of aging. Still with freshness. Believe me, that 96, that acidity is still there, really lifting and supporting the wine. That's really interesting. So if you want on a restaurant who has a big wine list and likes to get several vintages and more depth, and sometimes vintages over 20 years, that's the perfect wine. Or for collectors, I would say, for private customers. And now we arrive to Chateau Montus Latier, probably the best Tannat on earth. That's really something that was discovered by Alain, that terroir, in the early 90s, only a few hectares, 10 hectares, steep slopes, amazing steep slopes, so difficult. Nobody thought about, making wines there. It sounds crazy, but Alain understood that he knew that there was potential there. We use only 4 to 5 hectares. You've seen that we keep only 5 clusters. That's really the quintessence of Tannat. And it's the highest altitude that we get in Madiran, always windy, a very different profile. It's 5 kilometers, from Chateau Montus. And with that wine, you can face anything, I would say. It's such an elegance, such a finesse. I mentioned earlier that Prestige was very, upfront, impactful. With Latier, it's impressionism. That's a very wide palette, and definitely a prestigious wine. So it's definitely more high-end in terms of price point. When you look at the retail, we're at 165. But since the beginning, Alain Brumont has organized some blind testing, what we've called the icon meetings. And I can tell you that wine over several vintages has won against wines that were not with 3-digit, but more than that. So definitely the best of what we do. Very low production, but always available, and you can get access to that wine. We don't get only one vintage; we get several vintages. The first vintage was 2001, but we also get some offers with verticals of several vintages. So again, with high-end restaurants, the few that you have in your market where you want to be in, and when they're interested, the sommelier interested to get several vintages on the same wine list, that's the best wine for that kind of approach. Okay, so we've seen different realities from the Gascony to Taurus to the two estates. What should we remember about what we've said together? First, perhaps have a look or listen to what others have said. Robert Parker, Steven Spurrier, Bethan and Dessau, who are very famous in France. They are just putting and showing that what Alain Brumont has achieved is to be part of that selection of very high-end wines. Could be from Bordeaux, but not only, from our region. Bethan, comparing it to Pingus from Vega Sicilia. I think that we could define Alain Brumont as an artist. He gets a vision, he wants to achieve something, and there is no compromise. That's the bottom line. What are the key selling points? What to remember of Brumont as a company? I would say first that we are very true to the terroir. We have a strong identity, a strong authenticity. You've seen the movie A Man, a Terroir, a Grape. That's basically wrapping up everything that we want to transmit or to communicate to the consumer. Then we have a really cutting-edge team. I'm talking about the team close to Alain, with the winemaker Fabrice Dubosc, working with him very closely, the right hand. He's been working with Alain for 17 years. He used to work at Chateau Margaux before, at Gigal. That man is in the early 40s, really amazing guy, very brilliant, very discreet, but doing a very strong job. And when you're with Alain Brumont for more than 15 years, imagine all the benefit that we can get from a quality point of view, year after year, aging after aging. Premium positioning, we are first and foremost built through Chateau Bouscassé and Chateau Ventus, but we also have more. We are present, on the media, social media also. You will see Laurence Brumont, the wife of Alain Brumont. If you try to connect, and I invite you to connect with her on Instagram, on Twitter, you will get some news consistently about what we do. The wines, I mean, value for money, balance, food pairing, quality, really that potential of fitting with different customers and different moment of consumption. Strong brands, Chateau Montu, Chateau Bouscassé, they are terroir, but they are also known as reference. And you would be surprised the number or the share of sommelier and big chef who already know, who have been in contact with those wines, could be through their schools or through their experience in the market in different countries. Tourism, so natural for you guys in the US, not always the case in France, but I think we are very strong at that. We can host people. We have rooms in Chateau Bouscassé, in Chateau Montus. We have people every day, experiencing the food and eating at Chateau Bouscassé. That's just in our DNA, so easy, and take advantage of that. And over the years, consistently, really that recognition, even if it's not the most important thing to us, the biggest recognition is our partners, the consumer, what they say. That's never bad to get also, leading, a prestigious newspaper or leaders like Wine Spectator, Wine Enthusiast, really year after year, vintage after vintage, recognizing all the job that is done by the team of Alain. And we try, even if we get a core range, we try to also adapt and to get something that will fit the market. So we try to be smart in a way, I would say, to adjust also to what the customer is looking for. You've seen there is a wide range. There is always an answer with Brumont. Never happened to me to go out from an account and saying I don't have anything to propose. There is always something that we could use in our portfolio at Brumont. And last but not least, I would say, if you have to remember or to transmit, communicate something to the sales team, it will be that page. 15 pictures, 15 key messages. You will probably recognize a lot of elements that we mentioned earlier. I will go very fast from one picture to the other. First, look at what is at the center. At the center, balanced wines with unlimited food pairing option. Food, food, food. That's always at the center of what we do. We strongly believe that we bring terroir to the glass, and the wine plus the food will bring to something better. We are food enhancers. Then if you look quickly, the man, I mean, Alain Brumont, that's an amazing character, somebody who changed the picture, put that map, that appellation on the map, who is championing that region. Southwest is highlighted. It will be highlighted through Alain Brumont. Alain Brumont will be highlighted this year for sure. Second picture, we have a beautiful region. Believe me, it's pretty amazing environment. We benefit from those mountains. We get a microclimate, and that's what we try to really share and express. And we really, for us, the tradition are so important, and we try to nurture that. The terroir. I mentioned it so many times. Alain has been smart at cherry picking the best one, and that's what we are doing consistently. We're not trendy people. We are just, bringing the terroir to the glass, and that's what we've been doing for decades, and that's what we'll continue to do. Then we have a Brumont method. It's not by the book. Alain is always at the edge, bringing new techniques, bringing the pigeage into the region. The first one to do optical sorting. So it's first the grape, first what is in the vineyard, but then when the technique, when the tool is doing better than human, we'll use it, that's for sure. Tanat, that's the grape. Blessed grape, I would say. You have everything naturally. You don't have to add anything. You don't have to add sugar. You don't have to add any acidity, to add any tannins. It's balanced, and that's an amazing aging potential. It's like a wonderful car. It's like a Ferrari or an Aston Martin. If you don't know how to drive it, you hit the wall right away. It could be a disaster. But if you get a good driver, somebody who really understands how it works, you can make amazing races. That's what's happening with Alain. Then talking about winemaking, if you talk to Fabrice Dubos, the winemaker I mentioned earlier, he'll say, well, minimalistic, that's first the grapes. But believe me, there is a huge time and investment that is done there, very true and genuine to the grapes, but really at the edge too. We have wine of character. We are different. We come from Gascony. We come from Southwest. We assume that. We take positions. So we are not mainstream. We get identity, and we are proud of it. I mentioned earlier the food. We have prestigious facilities. What you see on that picture is called the Cathedral of Tanat. It's not a castle. That's actually the cellar where we produce the wines. So it was done also by a small team of people, a handful around Alain, and they have built everything with their hands. It's not somebody who arrived with billions or millions of dollars and spending it to rebuild something or rejuvenate. Alain had no money at all. So he really built everything from scratch. That's pretty amazing. Then you have very important to us, the sommelier and the chef. They are the one who will acknowledge, acclaim the wines. Alain has opened the doors to any school of sommelier over the last decades. It's always open. You always have some student at the winery, and you would be surprised by the number of people who perhaps 30 years ago went at the winery, tasted the wines. So use that and try to take advantage of that asset. Eno-tourism, I mentioned it earlier, 10 rooms at Chateau Montus, very nice. Next picture, from a sales point of view, that's so important. From Gascony to Montus, we can be at any moment of consumption. There is a wide tool, a wide range of opportunity, price point. There is a solution for any customer. Value for money, that's probably the key point, or people would be surprised by what they get in their glass for the price point. That's what we love to see as a reaction, and that's pretty consistent. we are present in so many countries, so you might see also some coverage or Alain being in Japan or in very different markets. That's important. You cannot be global or pretend to be if you're not present all over the world. And I would say last word, Alain Brumont, that's a signature. And it can be highlighted or very discreet, you know, on the bottle. But the wine, when you taste it, you recognize it. There is really a guarantee, whatever I would say the price point, whatever the range, to get a quality, to get a balance, to get something that over-deliver. So I would say that it's pretty rare, that will be my final word, to get somebody who is encapsulating or is so iconic of both a region and also grapes. And that's really the story of Alain. And what I can tell you is that we'll continue to be very authentic. We'll continue to spread the word. And that year, 2018, will be absolutely key to that. And let's take advantage of that, as I mentioned at the beginning. Let's capture the opportunity. Let's make sure that we invest time. That's the time to increase the distribution, really, you know, widen, you know, the exposure of those wines. And I'm sure that we'll get some great results in the future. So thank you very much for your attention. It's my pleasure to answer any question you might have. Could be now, or you could just send me an email at this address. We'll be very reactive, and we hope to get the chance as a next step to see you in France. It's always important to talk about the wines, but it's even better when we can experience it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you very much, Vincent. Any questions for everybody on the call? No, yeah, Vincent, I think you did a very good job covering everything from top to bottom. Thank you so much for that. Your passion, your knowledge is incredible, and definitely something that, you know, we want to emulate in the market for sure. So thank you very much again. And
Vincent will be in the market. Vincent, your plan is to be in Michigan, in the United States, in the end of January, early February. We'll be getting you around the U.S., but you'll be in January.
Absolutely, it will be end of January, and let's say the first 2 weeks of February. So on January 29th, we'll get that awards dinner by the wine enthusiast in Miami, and after that, I will walk the market in Georgia, North Carolina. It will be a full Kindred, you know, market trip. So really looking forward to it, and then I will come back during the year. So always, you know, open to go in your markets and help you guys to support when you need me.
thank you, Vincent.
All right.
Thanks, Vincent.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.